Hi everyone, I'm JJ, and you're listening to Microphone Munchies. Food for thought, they'll get you hungry for more. So, happy Thursday, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're safe and sound. And if you're here in Toronto, I hope you're enjoying the sunshine and the warmth. The warmth, I guess. I mean, it's not minus whatever, so that's pretty good. And yeah, I hope you're all doing well. And isn't it crazy? It's almost March, and soon, spring will come, things will bloom again, and I just hope that this year brings a lot of good things for you. I hope that this year brings a lot of joy and a lot of I don't know, just good stuff, I guess. So, today here before I go into it, I want to say thank you to all of you who wished me a happy birthday. My birthday was on Monday, and it already feels like, even though it's only a week, it simultaneously feels super fast, and also it feels like it's like a year since Monday. So I just wanted to say thank you everybody who wished me happy birthday, and I apologize if I didn't get back to you. It's not because I hate you or anything. It's probably because I just didn't see the message, or maybe it got lost somewhere. But long story short, thank you. So today on this podcast, I want to talk about three things in particular. Now, the unifying theme is it's all about music. For some reason, music has been on my mind. I haven't done a dance video yet. I maybe if I feel like it, I'll dance tomorrow. But I don't know. Music is just the thing. There are three things in particular I want to talk about. The first one is this book that I'm reading. It's called The Spirit of Music. I'll talk about it more in a second, by Victor L. Wooten. Then I want to talk about a documentary series, a mini documentary series I just finished watching on Netflix called The Defiant Ones, and it's about Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine. And the last one is this concept. Shout out to my friend, he knows who he is, and he just brought this idea up. It's about dance and music, and this concept that I've been thinking about, which is reclaiming your space with music, reclaiming your space with dance specifically. And that will be the last thing. So let's get right into it. The first thing is this book. I don't know if you can see it, but it's called The Spirit of Music by Victor L. Wooten. And basically, first things first, Victor L. Wooten himself, he's a Grammy Award-winning Grammy Award-winning musician. He's a bass player, and he is awesome. He's probably one of the best teachers I've ever seen. If you haven't already, go Google him and check out his TED Talks. He does great TED Talks. He talks about the power of music, the way music can teach us a lot about life, because with music, we learn music similar to how we learn languages, in the sense that, we learn languages similar to how we learn music. Everything is confused right now, but the general idea is that when you learn music, when you listen to music, you are not afraid to play. And that's what makes music so beautiful, because at the end of it, at the highest level, it's play, it's joy. Yes, you work on the techniques. Yes, you work on the skills and all of these pieces, but when you combine them together, the magic happens when you're listening. The magic happens when you can feel the music, when music washes over you. And it's something that you cannot replace. You cannot teach someone. You can only show them, and they have to learn it themselves. And so it's really interesting hearing Victor Wooten, his philosophy of teaching, his philosophy towards music and towards life. For me, it's very reminiscent. It reminds me a lot of actually a lot of things I know from Chinese culture. For example, Taoism. And it also reminds me of things from ancient Greek and ancient Roman cultures. Philosophy, specifically Stoicism, a little bit of Epicureanism. All right, whatever. I tried. But basically, this idea that we don't really control music. We have to listen to music. Music has to speak to us, and we have to be there to listen, to serve. this is pretty interesting because he talks about, I'm still only in the very beginning, to be honest, but in the very beginning, he's talking to his mom and his dad, and he's having a hard time with life. Like, he just feels very purposeless and very lost. And I feel like this right now. Maybe some of you feel like this too, especially, with COVID. And it's been almost a year now in lockdown, and a lot of us just, we feel, what's going on? Where's the music? And so Victor talks about this concept of God through the music. In fact, in the book, his mom basically says, well, God is everywhere, and because you're a musician, maybe God is speaking through music. So listen. And it's this concept. Now, I want to emphasize, first of all, these are my opinions, these are my interpretations, my ideas. And second of all, when it comes to something like God, right? Of course, it's a very loaded topic. Everyone has their own ideas, their own beliefs, their own way of growing up. And I just want to mention that when I use God in this podcast, I don't necessarily mean a certain type of God or a certain type of gods or goddesses. That's not really the point. Whether it's a god, whether it's many gods, whether it's the concept of energy or vibes or whatever you want to call it, the higher power, something greater than us, fate. That's what I'm referring to. Now, do I know if God exists or not? I have no idea. But I'll tell you, this book made me reflect on it, and I have a little bit of not an idea, but it made me realize something. And so he talks a lot about God through music. And this reminds me, of course, from almost every religious and spiritual tradition. They always say that no matter where you look, God's there, right? Wherever you look, or wherever you look, there you are. So God is in all things. And this concept is really interesting here because when I think about it, Victor Wooten talks about this too. When he's driving along the highway, he's talking about how in the beginning, when he wasn't listening to the music, to life, everything was so irritating. He was trying to force his own way on things. But when he started realizing that actually things were working naturally, there was a nature, there was a rhythm, there was a purpose to all of this, that if he put his ego away and he just actually listened to what's going on, things started happening in his life naturally. And this idea, I flow in and out of it. And it's an idea that's it's tough because, to be honest with you, like I said, maybe there is no God. Maybe there's no idea, no God concept in the universe. Maybe there's no destiny, right? Like maybe we're just randomly here and everything's all, there's no purpose to anything. We're here and then we live and then we die. Possible. But here's what I'll say to that. If there is no God, the alternative, I don't know, at least for me personally, doesn't feel that great. And I don't mean, oh, God's going to take care of you. No. I don't mean that. I just mean that I think life is more fun if you assume or you believe, you have faith that there is some sort of purpose specifically for you. Whether or not there is a purpose, that, in my opinion, doesn't really matter because you are not the one who can tell. It's like the instrument doesn't know what kind of music they're playing. The instrument just plays the music. And so in this sense, if we are the instruments, not necessarily of God, you could say that, but instruments of whatever, of nature, then I just feel life is just it's more of an adventure. And I have noticed in my life, when I think with this open mindset that anything can happen and that I'm looking for signs, I'm basically using all the psychological biases, right? Confirmation bias. I'm basically looking at, mainly confirmation bias, to be very honest with you. But you start to notice this, right? In your life as well. When you have a good time, when you start noticing good things, you start to see more and more good things. Whereas when you're very angry or sad, like, maybe you just lost a job, or maybe you did poorly on an assignment at school, or you had an argument with someone, all of a sudden, everything in the world looks very, bleak. It looks very dark and it looks very hopeless. And yet, what's the truth? I don't know. It depends on your perspective. And so one thing I encourage for all of you, one thing that's really I'm learning and I want to learn for this year of my life, I really want to focus on this is, you know what? I don't care if it's woo-woo. I don't care if it's full of, forgive my language, full of shit. I don't care if it's bullshit. I want to believe that there is some purpose. I want to believe that there is a purpose in my life. There is some sort of narrative arc, some sort of story. And at the very least, I don't know if I'm the author. Maybe I'm a character. I don't even know if I'm the main character. But whatever I am, I want to play my part. And I want to try to play my part as well and as, as well as I can. And maybe that's something for you too. It just reminds me when I was a kid, my dad he would always say, don't dream too much. Like, don't have this pie in the sky thinking. Now, I can't help it. I'm always living in a fantasy world. I'm not sure how. I'm not sure why. As a kid, my favorite movie is and was Donnie Darko. So maybe that tells you something. But I'm always in this, and that's just where I live. You know, I was always the kid. I would walk around. I would be lost in my thoughts, and I would hit a tree because I didn't even realize the tree was there. Or I would step in dog poop. Yeah. And it's funny because my dad would always talk about like being realistic and being logical. I'm not sure if this plays into it. He's an engineer. And it's just funny now when I think back because I used to think that either in life, if you were very logical, you cannot believe in stuff. Like you cannot believe in fate or destiny. You just... Whereas on the other side, I believe in extremes, basically. Either you're super logical, like a robot, or you're a super hippie, and it's all, yo, what it do? Like, let's go, like, whatever, man. Like, let's just hang loose, you know? And it's just really, I don't know, it's a really, really interesting thing, because now when I look back, I realize, well, my dad then and now, he is very, very religious, and he's always telling me to repent, and to believe in God. And now I realize the irony. I don't know if it's hypocrisy necessarily, but just the fact that here is a person who, in my interpretation, I thought that he wanted me to be a robot who never thought about fate. And yet all the time, he's talking about believing in God, believing in, a higher power. And so now, for the record, I am a theist. Not atheist, I am a theist, as in I do believe in God or a God concept. I don't know which kind or what that means, what God is, but I do believe in something. And I just find that in life it's more interesting. It's more interesting when you believe in something. And whether in my case, I think music is also one of the ways God speaks to me and maybe speaks to you. If you're a dancer or a musician, sometimes in the music, you just find the answer. I don't really know what I was going with. Oh, right. Basically, all I'm trying to say is this. Right now, my challenge for myself, and I invite you to join this challenge, is for 2021, to look for the opportunities everywhere, to look for the omens, to really pay attention to the things that life offers you. And I think that's the point. Not to just think, okay, I have my own plan. I'm just going to go to work. I'm just going to do my thing and then go to sleep. Because I find that if you do that, close your eyes, open your eyes, boom, it's a new year. That's how 2020 felt like to me. 2020 felt like I was just surviving. And I'm done with that. I don't want to survive. I want to live. And so I encourage all of you to think the same. And I know everyone is in different situations. Some of you are in very maybe precarious situations. Maybe it's not easy. And I understand that I can't, magical words are not simply going to make everything okay. I just want you to know that you don't need to feel guilty for wanting to dream even when you're not there yet. Because the dream is what will give you the energy to put in the work to make your reality closer to your dreams. And that's something I wish someone said to me when I was younger, because I just thought either if I want to succeed in life, I have to quit all my dreams, Or I dream and never do anything. And the reality is you need both. The dreams keep you going, but you have to work, or else the dreams will not come true. They would just be a fantasy. The second thing I want to talk about is The Defiant Ones. This is a documentary series on Netflix. It's about Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine. And it's pretty interesting. I didn't really know very much about either character. I was interested because I actually thought they were going to talk about like the business of music. Very famously, Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine, they were both, believe co-founders or heads of Beats, the headphones, and they sold it to Apple a few years ago for like $3 billion or something. It was one of the biggest deals. It was definitely Apple's biggest acquisition, and I thought it was going to be more about business, but it was more about like everything, about music, business, culture, history. Wow, it was a lot. And I learned a lot about the US, especially over the last few decades, and a lot about hip hop and rap and the music business. Now, why am I bringing this up? One thing, or a few things that I learned, or a few things that were in the documentary series. Number one is that the world is small. The music industry, everyone knows each other. It's really funny because, coming from, as a listener, I always assume, the hip hop people are there, the rock people are there, the pop people are there, and they don't know each other. But in reality, everyone goes to the same parties. Everyone's in the same space. And why is this important? Because in your life, treat everybody with respect. Treat everyone with kindness, because you never know who knows who. And at the very top, whatever that means, at the very top, everyone wins together, everyone loses together. And it's really interesting that when I listen to all these stories, if you look at every biography of any person who's quote unquote great, almost everybody has a lucky break. Somebody knows someone at the right time, at the right place, and things happen. It doesn't mean that they're lucky in the sense that they have no talent or ability. Oftentimes people work really hard and they just so happen to, be in the right place, right time. There's a quote by Stephen King. He says, "Inspiration exists, but it has to find you working." So I would say the same thing. Luck exists, but it has to find you working. The more you work, the luckier you get. I think, is that Yogi Berra? I don't remember. My brain at this point is just a bunch of quotes. But that was really interesting to see that Jimmy Iovine, he had this idea where all he would do, take one great thing here, take another great thing here, and then combine them to create something even greater. And it would often be very strange. Like, for example, I think it was Elton John. It looked like Elton John and Eminem, right? Or you have, crossovers, basically. The greatest crossovers since the Marvel Universe. And yet it works. You have these different dynamics, these different contrasts, right? Like you put hip hop and classical music, boop, and then you create something amazing, something beautiful. And I encourage you to look for those opportunities in your own life. Oftentimes we are so stuck in our world. For example, I'm a teacher. I'm always thinking about teaching. But what if there's a different world out there? Like now that I'm learning more about things like investing, I'm learning about traveling, and wow, there are more opportunities. Like everywhere you look, there's something to learn. There is something to learn. Going back to the idea about music again, everywhere you look, every experience that you have can teach you something if you only listen. Then there's this other idea. I was watching The Defiant Ones, and two more ideas popped up. One was this, there was a guy named Suge Knight, I believe. And I don't really know much about him. I know that he was involved in a great deal with, back then, like Death Row and Bad Boy Records, him and Diddy, Tupac, Notorious B.I.G., Biggie. And the interesting thing, why do I bring him up, is because basically he, like Jimmy Iovine, he mentioned something. Or one of the characters mentions that basically at that time, a lot of let's say for a character like Suge Knight, he basically achieved the fame, the power, all this stuff. So why was he still involved with, let's say, the BS, right? Like, why was he still involved with, gangster stuff? Like, why was he still involved in that? Like, if he at that time could actually distance himself. Like, just say, oh, I'm only doing business. Like, why does he have to be involved with that? Why does everything have to be so like ego, like my turf, your turf? If you come here, if you say the wrong thing, I have to retaliate, etc., etc. And the funny thing here, this is what the point is that I want to make. I have no moral claim on this. Like, I don't know. I've never been in that situation. I don't know what the life is like. Suge Knight does say something that's very telling. He says, the reason why, this is all I know. And it just, a light bulb went off in my head. Like, you know, when you read stories, newspapers of people who succeed, and then in 10 years, they lose all their money. Or, you know, and it just really, I mean, it's the same as, for example, in psychology, when people repeat the traumas of their past or their childhood. And it just really reminds me that one of the missions that we have in life is to know ourselves and to heal ourselves. Because if we don't do that, no matter how successful we may become, we are going to self-sabotage ourselves, because what we know is comfortable. And if you come from a place where growing up, it was not the easiest childhood, where there was a lot of trauma, a lot of, you know, unhealed things, like things that are still festering, you know, it will come back and bite you in some way or another. And if it doesn't come back to bite you, you might bite yourself. And so that's something that I encourage, at least for myself, to remember, and maybe for you, which is to look at your past, look at the kind of pains that you have. Like, for example, for me, I always want to be, I always wanted to be great, whatever that means, because I thought that I couldn't do it, because I was told that I shouldn't dream. And so now I want to dream. And yet at the same time, I have to be careful, because maybe one day if I become great, whatever that means, my ego will be in the way and say, yeah, JJ, yeah, you are great. And I have to watch out for that, because that would be the thing that sabotages me. And then I'll go right back to square one. Anyway, I don't know if that made any sense. I hope it does, but I hope it helps you just to look and to realize that if we don't consciously try to work on ourselves and try to know a different reality, it's very easy to fall back to your previous things. It's like that. There's this Greek philosopher, I forgot his name right now, but he says this. He says, we don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training. And that just means that if all your life you are in this space of negativity in your head, even when you succeed, you are going to go right back into the negativity. Only difference is maybe you'll have it, more people might know you. Your negative explosion might happen and everyone will see it on Instagram or Twitter, and maybe more money is at stake. I don't know, but check it out. Last thing in the Defiant Ones is this idea that greatness leaves clues. And at the same time, it's not something to idolize. What does this mean? Well, the more I look at, the more, when you start reading more biographies about anything, for example, my favorite biographies, the four best biographies in my life are so far, in no particular order: Long Walk to Freedom, Nelson Mandela; Steve Jobs, Walter Isaacson; Malcolm X, autobiography of Malcolm X; and Open, Andre Agassi. And the more you read biographies, the more you learn about like famous people, the more you realize, number one, all great people do similar stuff. They believe in themselves. They oftentimes go through a lot of people doubting them, and they quite often work very hard. And for them, it doesn't feel like work because it's their life. Now, on the flip side, great people often fall the same way. Great people often rise because they work XYZ, but they fall because they think that when there's that idea that in order to rise, you create a myth about yourself, but your downfall begins when you start believing that myth, when you start believing your own hype, your own hoopla. And the thing about greatness, or the thing about quote unquote, I say quote in quotes because at the end of the day, one thing you realize the more biographies you read or watch is that we're all human. That's it. Doesn't matter how much money you have. I don't care what you've achieved. We're all human beings. And why is that so important? Because human beings are not perfect. Oftentimes, if you put all your effort into work, maybe you might have to sacrifice family, or you have to sacrifice whatever. And I don't know what's worth it. I don't know. For example, in the Defiant Ones, I believe Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre, he doesn't mention it, I don't think, there, but I think right now what's happening is Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre were both married and divorced before. In fact, you find a lot of quote-unquote great people, or quote-unquote successful people, oftentimes getting in very tumultuous relationships, on and off marriages, XYZ, blah, 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 blah. Now, I'm not them, so I have no idea, and I don't want to judge. I'm just saying that it's not all, we don't think about, we see the greatness, but we don't think about what it's like to actually live like that. To be working 16-hour, 18-hour days, to never see your family, to be successful here, but to fail here, and to only care about the fail and not even feel the success. Like, it crazy. I just want to remind you, try your best not to idolize. Like, they're not gods. They're just humans. And if anything, as you know, with a lot of celebrities, the moment they do something bad, all of a sudden they're a very good scapegoat as well. So just be careful that if people who like successful people worship the crown of success or the throne of success, but they don't worship the person. So what do I mean by that? It means that when you become successful, people will love you when you're successful, but they don't always love you, the person. They love the idea of you as success. They love the idea of the throne, the power of success. And the moment you're not successful, you will find who really loves you for you. And just to remember, the power is not the person. The power comes from the office. The power comes from the actual position in this context, not the person. I don't know if that made any sense. Anyway, last thing for today, reclaiming your space to dance. I'm going to make this short and sweet. Basically, in my life, all my life, whenever I dance, I try to be as small as possible. I've been taught my whole life to just never draw attention to yourself. Don't put yourself out there, because if you bring attention to yourself, you will make yourself an easier target for other people. Forgive me, I ate a lot. For other people to drag you down. And I realized that I was taught this because these were the experiences of my parents. And my parents were immigrants to Canada. And maybe that was their experience. Maybe in their time, their English was not, at least they didn't have a quote unquote native accent. Maybe during that time, people didn't look kindly upon them, immigrating here from Hong Kong. I'm not sure. But I realize now that a lot of, if you look back at your childhood, think about the influences you get, whether from your parents, your friends, or from TV or whatever, wherever. You can start to, as an adult, you can start to see what you believe and what you should, what do you believe based on what you've seen. And I noticed that in my life, I've always tried to be small, to hide, because I've been afraid. I've been afraid that if I try to do something, people would just laugh at me. People would just shut me down. And I don't know why, but in my life, I've always tried to ask for permission. I always, try to get more street cred. Have the people who are gatekeepers approve me first. And I don't know if I don't like it. Don't get me wrong. I feel like an idiot. But I just want to reveal that to you, because maybe if you feel like that sometimes, well, you're not alone. It's so normal, and it might come actually from the way you were brought up. And it doesn't mean your parents are wrong. It just means they were probably trying to shield you with their experience, what they knew, right? They're just trying their best. And maybe the reality now is a little bit different. For example, if I were to tell my kids, when I was a kid, there was no Instagram. So if I were to tell my kids, you'll never, don't, what am I going to tell them? I don't know. Practice playing Snake on the Nokia 330s, 3300. It won't make sense for them, because Nokia, who plays Snake anymore? which is sad because Snake is a great game. But you get the point. What I mean to say is that what makes sense for you or your parents might not make sense for the next generation. And to be kind, to have sympathy, because your parents were probably just trying their best. And you get to decide if their story is your story. So this is what I realize. Now, I want to develop my own security. Nobody can heal you except yourself. And so for me too, I want to encourage myself in the way that I was never encouraged. Because I look sometimes and I see other people and I realize that when people are secure in their power, the way they empower their kids, the way they educate their kids, it's very different. It's not, don't do this because this will happen. Don't do this because you might fail. Do the safest thing, because they don't do that. They just say, whatever you want, I love you, I support you, and we'll make it work. And I've always, what? People actually say that? And now I realize I got to start doing it. And if no one's going to do it for me, I'm going to do it for myself. And hopefully, if one day I have kids, I'll do it for them as well. And that power isn't because you have money or not. You know, it's more of an inner power. It's an inner security that no matter what happens, you're okay. And yeah, that's something I want to work on. Reclaiming my space. When it comes to dance, it's just being okay to be me. Even if I look ridiculous, even if people laugh at me, I mean, among I don't know. I mean, even like dance, it's kind of weird. Like now that I think about it, most of the people who like my dancer friends, they're my dancer friends, but I didn't know them when I was a kid. And the people who I knew when I was a kid, they're like, what? This guy dances? Like, it's crazy. And of course, my parents, they're like, you look like, it's so silly. But whatever. This is my life. And so I'm going to keep dancing. And I hope you keep dancing as well. That's it. That's it for today. I hope you got something. I'll see you next week. And yeah, that's JJ out.